So I'm starting to get some games in now that my work is kind of slowing down. And I'm starting to look at more, like, the edition is starting to reveal itself to me. I'm starting to see, I'm learning, right? I'm learning, I'm playing, I'm learning. So should we take a Marshcrawla? That's a good question. But first, I'd like to, of course, thank all my patrons, especially the patrons that have signed up recently because they have joined my TTS League. Big thank you there. Thanks to Wiberian for the art, Baron of Dice. Use code MDG at checkout to get 5% off your order. I don't get anything from that. You just use the code, you get 5% savings. Like, why not, right? Get some sick dice. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at the Marshcrawla. So 6 move, this 130 points. So pretty cheap. 10 health, 4 up save, which is actually a reasonable save for Cruel Boys. 2 control, so not a ton of control. As far as damage goes, it's not really a very damaging unit. If we want to look at the actual math on the damage, we're dealing about 2.82 damage per 100 points. So not like very, very little. Like no venom-encrusted weapons, right? Like, you know, like very little going on here. So not really much to write home about, but that's not why we're using it. In terms of its survivability, the Marshcrawla, where is the Marshcrawla? I did it right here. So it's fine for its survivability. Like Cruel Boys is not a very survivable army, but it's about as survivable as Hobgrots for their points, right? So a 4 up save, 10 health. Like it's got quite a bit of health. One thing that it's more survivable than Hobgrots. One thing about this chart that I think I got to put in is like just a column that's irrespective of its points, right? Just like a sort of raw survivability score, you know, like it's save and wards and all this, regardless of points. I think that number matters, but it has a regeneration ability, right, where it just heals D3 at the start of any turn. So if it's more survivable against chip damage. So if someone's going to shoot at it or throw some mortal wounds at it with an endless spell or something, it's going to be able to kind of heal that off over time. And if people don't get into combat with it, it's going to sort of survive, right? And it tends not to get into combat as very often. On the battlefield, it really has 2 roles. One of the roles that it can play, it's got a little bit of a bigger base, right? It's at 105 by 70, so it can get in the way. It can, you know, put itself outside of 3 of your opponent as they're sort of flanking and coming in to buy a little bit of time to let your shaman and those things get out of the way and move. But what it's really there for is this passive on to march. While they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit, friendly Cruel Boys infantry units can use charge abilities even if they use run ability in the same turn. So our infantry units are Bolt Boys, Hobgrots, Gut Rippas, and Monster Killers. Okay, so should we take this unit? Well, mobility is... Let's look at some of the pros, right? Mobility is very, very good in every army. It doesn't matter. Also, being able to spend a command point to move Monster Killers and Gut Rippas 11 inches, being able to spend a CP to move them 11 inches before they charge is really going to matter sometimes. It's not just that you get to add a d6 to the roll, it's that you have this option. Suddenly, instead of going 5 and charging, they're going 11 and charging. That's a huge amount of maneuver. Oops. So, I mean, like I said, movement in this game is good, period. So being able to run and charge is really, really strong. It doesn't really... We're not going to play Hobgrots, right? It's just going to be Monster Killers and Bolt and Gut Rippas. Another thing that I think is really important for this unit is if you're going to be taking the Swamp Horde Bullies subfaction. Did they upgrade these? Did they show these? Yeah, they did. Swamp Horde Bullies. If you're going to take Swamp Horde Bullies, you need to have a unit, like you need to have an enemy unit in combat with multiple of your units. So if like all of a sudden, you know, they kill one of the units and you need to have a second unit in play to get this Swamp Horde Bullies to really be able to wipe your opponent off the map, then being able to move 11 inches and then charge is good. It's going to add some consistency too, where it's, you know, instead of having a 7-inch charge, you know, you can run with a D6 and maybe have at least a 6, but more likely like a 4 or a 5, or like I said, spend that CP and have that 3-inch charge. So consistency is good. We've all lost games because we failed a 6-inch charge that we needed to have happen. We've all lost games. So spending a command point to add that consistency and really get right into the fray is really important. Can be very important. Okay, some drawbacks. So here's a couple of other things to consider. It is wholly within 12. It's not a huge range. It's a fair range. Like, it's totally fine. So, but if they're moving 11 inches forward and then charging, they have to be within 12 when they make that charge. So sometimes you can end up in a situation where the Marshcrawla is coming up behind a unit of Gut Rippers. The unit of Gut Rippers moves 11 inches. This guy moves 6, and then all of a sudden he's out of range. So it takes some skill to play to be able to move things within range. The Marshcrawla can, you know, run because he generally doesn't have to charge, but it can be a bad scenario where it's like he, you know, just doesn't have a very good run roll, and the thing that he wanted to make charge has run away on him. It also only affects infantry, so if you're doing like a Soggy Scumdrek or a Break-a-Boss or a Gnashtooth, it's not going to be able to affect them. There's not really any infantry heroes that we have in our army that we're trying to get into combat at all. It's really just the Shaman, right? And, you know, some other ones that sit in the tower or whatever. So that is some drawbacks of it. So do you play this? Well, I mean, for 130 points, for 10 points more, you can take a kill bow. So there are some fierce competitive pieces that are trying to take this spot for this number of points. So I think it's really going to depend on two things. One, I think it's going to depend on your list. Are you running 2 reinforced units of Gut Rippers and then like 2 or 3 units of Monster Killers? Then probably, if you're running 3 reinforced units of Gut Rippers, I think he's an auto-include for sure. But if you're leaning more towards, like, I'm starting to appreciate more and more Bolt Boys, I think that maybe 6 is good, but if you're really insisting on running more like a Monster Mash style, where you're running like a Vulture, 2 Break-a-Bosses, Gobsprak, right? If you're running lots of monsters, I think that his value goes down. And yeah, you can also kind of make a case of, if you want to play a really cagey style, if you want to play a real castle-y style, which I think is more viable this season than I originally thought it was going to, thanks to my games with Leonard. Shout out to Leonard. But if you want to play more like a cagey style and force your opponent to come to you, I think you can make the argument that another Killbow instead of a Marshcrawla might be better. So to me, really what it says when I'm considering units like this, and when I say things like it depends on your list, it depends on playstyle, it means that the army's in a really good spot. There's not just one list that's good. There's some wiggle room here. There's room for personal expression and how you want to play the game. So let me know how you're playing the game in the comments below, or come join the Discord. But no matter what you do, like, subscribe, wah.